Good morning. My name is Allie Williams, and I'm the Director of Children, Youth, and Family Ministries here at OCC. In an effort to give Pastor Rick some much needed time off and rest, I'm providing the Sunday message for you this morning. It has been fun each week to see where Pastor Rick will pop up to give his devotional or Sunday sermon. By now, he is well on his way to being the video sermon expert. So you'll forgive me if I need the anchor of this pulpit. I have always preached from the pulpit, and so I return to what is familiar. I have to say what is not familiar is preaching to an empty church. But it does take me back to the very first sermon that I ever gave as a lay pastor. It was July 4th, 2010, in a little town called Natoma, Kansas. I was so nervous and anxious to deliver my first sermon that I came to the church and I practiced by myself. Because as laity, I had no real formal training at that point, but I have to admit, even with the practice, I really didn't know what I was doing. But I've learned along the way, through the years. It's hard to believe that it was 10 years ago that I was practicing in a very hot, very empty church, and here I am again. A bit surreal, but as unusual as this situation is, it really shouldn't surprise me. After all, these are truly strange, disorienting, and even moving times we are living in. So much to take in, foundations have been shifting. Life as we once knew it has changed, and it's led to so many questions. In fact, there are a lot of questions that have been asked in my household recently. For those of you who don't know me and are unfamiliar with my backstory, I'm the mom of two little ones, ages 8 years old and 11 years old, and I have a couple grown-up kids as well. In my conversations with them, I feel proud. I feel complete as a mom when I can give them advice, resources, guidance, and provide answers to their questions and allay their concerns. Like most parents, I hope to pass on any wisdom I might have. In just the past few weeks, I've been asked difficult questions, like, when will we go back to school? Hopefully in the fall, is what I say. And more recently, when we do go back to school, what will it be like? I'm not really sure. Is the coronavirus getting better or worse? Well, I guess that depends on who you ask. When can we visit our family and friends again? Can we play on the playground equipment yet? We'll see, hopefully soon. And then questions like, why are people protesting? Why are they upset? What happened to that man? Did he die? What is racism? Why are some people that way? If a system is racist, who's doing it? That's when I say, okay, let's sit down. We need to talk. You know, little kids can have really big questions, tough questions, important questions. Some I can answer, and some I cannot. Sometimes the answer is simply, I don't know. Sometimes it's because there's just not enough information to formulate an answer, or sometimes it's a judgment call or an opinion-based thing. And some things require me to listen, to take in different perspectives, stories, history, and to come to a new and better understanding myself before I can give an answer. Now, I've always been fairly at peace with the idea that as a person, I will never know it all. I'm even comfortable, or not threatened, if you will, that when it comes to many, many topics, especially mathematics, also other experiences and topics, that I am ignorant. Now, don't worry, I'm not putting myself down. After all, ignorant is defined as a lack of knowledge or information. I fully embrace what the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 13. He says, now we see things imperfectly, like puzzling reflections in a mirror. But then we will see everything with perfect clarity. And I know what I know is partial now and is incomplete but eventually I will know everything, just as God knows me now completely. It's such a reassuring thought that one day we will have complete answers to our questions, a full knowledge, one that is not obstructed or obscured, but a sense of knowing as God knows ourselves. I'm comfortable that all will be revealed in time. However, while I'm here, I still want to know things. I want to grow and learn and take in new information. I want to gain wisdom in my spiritual journey so that I might apply it to my everyday life and interactions. I imagine that you do too. At OCC, we live out this faith statement. Faith is a journey. We're not all at the same place in our spiritual lives, but we grow by learning from one another. In relationships here, it's safe to ask questions. We accept that people have different understandings. We respect people wherever they are on their journey. What I hear in our OCC faith statement is that we strive for an honest and open atmosphere that creates a safe space for both the individual and a community of believers so that they can live out and explore their faith together. We don't claim to have a quick and easy path to spirituality, to knowing God. We readily acknowledge that we are all in different places, but it is in the growth and learning that we progress on our journey. And while it's not explicit in our faith statement, as Christians, we have a tradition of seeking the wisdom of God that is also a part of our journey. In the United Methodist Church, where I grew up and started my ministry, wisdom is often referred to as a spiritual gift. The prevailing thought is this: the gift of wisdom allows people to understand deeper meaning and apply knowledge, beliefs, and experiences to everyday situations. Wise, gifted individuals make connections and help others make them as well. To understand the implications of our beliefs and actions, those gifted with wisdom often understand root causes of disagreements, conflict, and barriers to growth and development. People with wisdom help others understand and clarify options to help make good decisions. Of course, wisdom is also prevalent in the scriptures. Cynthia Bougot, who wrote a book on the wisdom of Jesus, explains that in the Old Testament, there were whole books of Hebrew wisdom literature, found in Ecclesiastes and in Job and in Proverbs. And in the New Testament, Paul and James expound on wisdom, albeit in very different ways. But it is Jesus himself who spent his time and his earthly ministry as a wisdom teacher, if you will. The wisdom Jesus revealed to us was through parables and stories and pithy sayings, but always on our level. Jesus didn't come to proclaim the law that had already been done. He came to clarify it. Jesus took the earthly wisdom of the day and turned it on its head, time and time again, to reveal the true nature of God and God's expansive love for humanity. Much of Jesus' ministry challenged us to transform our inner selves, and he did that through wisdom teachings. You have heard it said, but I say. Those were the words of Jesus. I just wish that Jesus were here today to speak those words, to set things straight. There's so many disagreements, so many prevailing thoughts, just to reveal to us the specific wisdom that we need to answer these big questions and find solutions to the things that are facing us right now. So I thought, okay, wisdom. We need wisdom right now. That could turn things around. Considering all that we've experienced in our lives these past few months, with so much in doubt, so much chaos, fear, hurt, and challenges to unfair systems and practices, surely wisdom is in order. However, it's more than just that. Sorry, I really tried to just preach on one topic, but in order to grow spiritually and as a follower of Christ. We need wisdom, courage, and humility. In fact, I should switch those around a little. We need humility in order to have the courage to gain wisdom. You see, as much as I just want to go straight into wisdom, humility has to come first. Let me share with you a portion of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, the part known as the Beatitudes. Just for background, the Beatitudes are 8 or 9 blessings recounted by Jesus, depending on which gospel you read. Each is a proverb-like proclamation without narrative. In fact, many biblical commentators link the Beatitudes to the wisdom literature in the Old Testament. One says, when we read the Beatitudes, we know there is wisdom, and the depth of that wisdom can be releasing if we find the key. We notice that Jesus acknowledges our challenges and at the same time gives each of us a promise. So let's hear what wisdom Jesus gave to the crowds of the people who had gathered that day on the hillside. And I'm reading from Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 through 10. And Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Well, much of what Jesus says to his disciples and to the crowds and to us, it makes sense. But that first beatitude or phrase, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," that can be a bit of a head scratcher. But really, Jesus is just talking about humility. In fact, I was reading about the Beatitudes and I came across a Catholic priest and commentator who put it this way. He said, Jesus is going up to the mountain, brings the image of Moses going up to Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments, the law of God. And so we see there's this parallel where Jesus too went up the side of a mountain. He had that authority to speak from God. But what he said was different. Jesus offered teachings of life that offered both challenges and a way to console us. The challenge is to live in a manner proposed by the Beatitudes. The consolation comes when we live the Beatitudes. At the heart of the Beatitudes, which represent only the beginning portion of the Sermon on the Mount, is the first Beatitude. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The call to poverty of spirit is the call to humility. This first Beatitude is the basis or foundation for all that follows. So what is this poverty of spirit known as humility? Humility, or the act of being humble, is not being proud or haughty, not arrogant or assertive. And I like this second part of the definition of humility. It's reflecting and expressing or offered in a spirit of deference. So in order to gain spiritual wisdom, whether it be from Jesus' Beatitudes or any other directive from the scriptures, we must do it through the lens of humility. After all, having a humble spirit is at the heart of who Jesus is, and it's the first of the blessings and the challenges that he offers to us as his followers. Now, practically speaking, I like the way James marries wisdom and humility together. In chapter 3, verses 13 through 18, and I'm reading the Common English version of James. He says, "Are any of you wise and understanding? Show that your actions are good with a humble lifestyle that comes from wisdom. However, if you have a bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, then stop bragging and living in ways that deny the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes from above. Instead, it is from the earth, natural and demonic. Wherever there is jealousy and selfishness, ambition, there is disorder and everything that is evil. What of the wisdom from above? Well, first, it is pure, and then peaceful, gentle, obedient, filled with mercy and good actions, fair and genuine. I love the sound and pragmatic faith of James. I especially like the phrase, stop bragging and living in ways that deny the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above. Oftentimes in the discourse of our daily lives and our society, we hear that sentiment of, oh, I know it all. Perhaps you don't hear someone boast outright about how supremely wise they are, but they might be saying it in their actions, their approach and demeanor, or they choose to deny the truth as presented to them. Perhaps where I've seen it the most lately is on social media and on TV, where the sentiment is blared for all to hear. I have formed my opinion, and I don't care what new or pertinent information is revealed. I'm going to hold on to my way of thinking and knowing. And the one that really saddens me is, if it didn't happen to me, then it's not valid or real. Perhaps one way to increase our wisdom and to reject this way of thinking is to simply seek the truth. It's to approach life in a humble way that says, teach me. I don't know it all. Help me to understand. I really want to know. Whatever the topic might be. Especially true today, it might even cause us to contend with uncomfortable things outside of our life experiences, culture, tradition, and learned practices. That is where courage comes in. After all, these are not effortless things to confront in ourselves. It takes courage to allow yourself to be confronted with an idea, concept, or belief that is different than your own. Consider that becoming a wise person might call us to deconstruct long-standing beliefs and notions rooted in our own individual experiences. And that's not to say that what we have experienced is false or wrong. It just means that it might not be shared by others who have equally valid or real experiences. That is something that takes courage to grapple with, to incorporate those experiences into our overall understanding of an issue and the world. Remember, spiritual wisdom means that you have a gift for making connections and helping others to see them as well. People with spiritual wisdom tend to understand the implications of their beliefs and actions. And since I'm inspired by the practical approach of James, you might want to try out some of these phrases as a way to humbly grow in wisdom when confronted with new or differing perspectives than your own, such as, oh, I didn't know that before. I guess I was wrong. Or how about this one? From the evidence provided, it appears that I might need to rethink things. Or how about this one? You make a strong argument. I'll consider what you said. Shows an openness. How about, I never thought about it that way. Thank you. Now I will. Truly humble. How about this one? I can't support my opinion. I don't know why I think that. And funny enough as it is, after I found this list of sayings, I realized I had been confronted with that same one several years ago from a colleague. And it honestly led to a very profound journey for me, one that helped me find a spiritual mentor, because I was saying things and I didn't know why I was saying them or how I came to that belief. So that one really is personally touching to me. And finally, this one's really bold. In light of new information, I have changed my mind. You see, those weren't so bad, not so hard, right? Well, if those phrases were easy and painless, I don't think I would be preaching this sermon. Right now, we have so many complex things going on in our country. Discussions about social justice, COVID-19, politics, poverty, climate change, and many more. Hard things, painful things, difficult issues that many of us struggle to comprehend and resolve within ourselves and in the world. If there were ever a time to be poor in spirit, it would be now. The courage to acknowledge that I don't know it all, and my experience might not be the only one. It's actually a position of growth and not weakness. Being willing to honor others by engaging, listening, and even changing course if needed. Simply striving to live in the truth, as James says. That is being wise. I want to tell you a story that I heard recently on a podcast that I just couldn't stop thinking about and really kind of inspired this sermon for me. It's a true story about a man who admitted something hard, something ugly, something that usually goes unsaid. He admitted it publicly, and it changed the course of his life and another's too. And it can teach us all something. This is a story about humility, courage, and a path to understanding, growth, and wisdom. It happened in August of 2016. A white man named Gary Civitello from North Carolina called C-SPAN to talk to a Black guest about his racial prejudices. He confessed that he feared Black people, and he wondered how he might change his mindset. The guest, Heather McGee, the president of DEMOS, a progressive public policy organization that advocates for equality, listened thoughtfully, nodding slowly. When he finished, she thanked him and then spoke to him emphatically and empathetically about what he might do to begin to get over those fears, including getting to know Black people on a personal level. Over the next year, he would make at least one close African-American friend, McGee herself. He said that he and McGee have spoken by phone many times and are personal friends. What has helped him change his prejudices, he said, was open communication with people of other races, as well as reading Black history. There's just so many things that I didn't know that I thought I knew, he said. I depended on the media for my information. As it turns out, just as the exchange had touched so many people, it had really deeply affected Gary. He has really done a transformation of his life and taken this on as a really mission-driven journey. He's chronicling all the racism he observes and sees in his own friends' circle and life, according to Heather. Heather went down to North Carolina to meet Gary in person, and they had a several-hour conversation about race relations and shared their personal histories as human beings. And for Gary, his work to overcome his prejudices has not only helped him reverse long-held stereotypes, but has enabled him to view others' struggle with empathy. And I'm providing a link for you so that you can see Heather and Gary and hear their story and kind of see the journey that Gary went through. You know, I don't know if this was in any way a spiritual transformation for Gary. He doesn't speak to that. But it is the kind of inner transformation that Jesus challenges each of us to undergo. A transformation born out of humility, grace, love, and wisdom from above. And the courage that it must have taken Gary to speak the truth of who he was. I find that extraordinary. To essentially say, I don't know how to be something different, but I want to learn. Will you help me? I find that so uncommon, but truly remarkable. It's okay to admit you don't know something. It's okay to admit that you've had and held a false view, even if you've had it for a long, long time. Gary can prove that. And I gave an example of race, but that's just one area. We are complex human beings, and so it could easily be about gender or age or culture, politics, religious preferences. any variety of very deeply personal and individual things. Believe me, it's okay. I tell my kids all the time, I don't know. And they trust that I'm being honest. But I'll also tell them that if I'm working on trying to figure something out, most crucial is I tell them if I'm wrong. That one is harder, but it's no less satisfying. And they trust that me, their mom, is fully human, and I can admit my mistakes or change my mind if I'm given new and enlightening information. The pursuit of wisdom through humility. That is what I want them to see in me on my journey as a Christian. And that's what I hope to pass on to them. You see, as Christians, we cannot divest or divide ourselves. We don't have the luxury of growing and learning in our spiritual faith and neglect the world around us. We are to live out our faith in the world. So today, start with you. What are you hearing about that you've been struggling with? What has been on your heart and mind that you don't understand, but you'd like to know more? Are you willing to ask yourself, like I did a few years back, why do you believe what you believe? And then find out why. Sit with it for a while, then walk with it. And you know what? Wrestle with it if you have to. But don't ignore it. Pray for humility first. Trust me, God will find a way to humble you in the most surprising of ways. And then pray for courage. Remember, I can do all things in Christ who strengthens me. And finally, pray for wisdom. The spiritual kind of wisdom that is pure and then peaceful, gentle, obedient, filled with mercy and good actions, fair and genuine. So I don't have much more to say, and I really don't want to complicate it anymore. So friends, I propose that we do as James told us in his book. Live well, live wisely, and live humbly. Will you join me in prayer? Dear God, we come before you today seeking guidance in our lives, in our interactions with those around us, and the things that bring us discomfort, and for all the things we simply do not know. We pray that you might teach us the humility, courage, and wisdom of your Son Jesus, so that we might transform our hearts, minds, and whole beings from the inside out. Lord, help us to be more like your Son Jesus, more loving, more giving, more grace-filled, and a seeker of truth and justice. We don't expect the answers you provide to always be easy, quick, or without struggle, but grant us your love and patience as we learn to learn new things on this journey with you. Amen. Now, I hope this has been helpful and encouraging to you, especially in these confusing times. And like Pastor Rick encourages us each week, I hope that you take some time to sit with this sermon and to process it. And then after that, if you feel so inclined, please hit the like button. Perhaps take a moment to comment with the name of someone who has demonstrated great humility or wisdom in your life. What lessons did they teach you? In what ways did you observe in their life that they were wise or humble? And did that have an impact on your spiritual life? Share with us. So often it's the examples of the saints that have gone before us that provide such wonderful examples of our own, to help us in our own faith life and journey. Further, we invite you to find out what's going on at Okemos Community Church by clicking on our website, okomosocc.org, or by finding us on Facebook, or perhaps consider signing up for one of our e-news services. They're really informative. On Monday, you would get an informational and inspirational message from Pastor Rick. And on Friday, we send out an e-newsletter that tells about everything that's going on in the life of OCC. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to provide the Sunday message for you this morning. Next week, we'll have to see where Pastor Rick pops up again. I know I'm looking forward to it. But I hope that the sermon was one that inspired you to look in those areas of your life where you feel like you need some growth and understanding. And I hope it provides you with the encouragement and permission to seek the kind of wisdom that is full of peace and gentleness, the kind of wisdom that God bestows upon the humble in spirit. So go forth into the spirit of humility today, and may your journey forward be one that is filled with truth, and may it be guided by the wisdom of God above.